How can strong nonviolent protests still end in failure? Imagine standing peacefully in front of a government building, holding signs and singing songs, hoping your message will change minds. But sometimes, even the most peaceful protests don't lead to change. Why is that? Let's explore the reasons behind this puzzling outcome. First, governments or authorities may respond to peaceful protests with force. They might use police to make mass arrests, deploy tear gas, or even open fire. The Sharpeville massacre in South Africa in 1960 saw police kill nonviolent protesters, which stopped the movement in its tracks. Similarly, the Tiananmen Square protests in China in 1989 ended with a brutal crackdown. Such violent responses can scare protesters and break the movement apart. Second, nonviolent protests requiring strict discipline. Protesters need to stay peaceful even when provoked. Without proper training or unity, movements can splinter or be infiltrated by groups that turn violent. When that happens, public support can fade because people don't want to be associated with violence or chaos. For example, some protests failed because factions within the movement lost control or acted out violently, damaging the overall cause. Third, the political environment plays a big role. In highly authoritarian or military-run countries, regimes often have little interest in listening to peaceful protests. They might see them as threats and respond with repression. External factors also matter. Countries with strategic interests might ignore or suppress protests to protect their alliances. The protests in Bahrain in 2011 and Syria in 2011 faced harsh responses because the governments wanted to stay in power at all costs. Fourth, public support can fade over time. If a movement becomes divided or if some groups resort to violence, the broader public might turn away. When protests are seen as chaotic or disruptive, people may stop backing them. This loss of support weakens the movement's influence and makes it easier for authorities to dismiss their demands. Finally, there are limits to nonviolence itself. It assumes that oppressors are willing to listen and change. But when regimes are deeply entrenched or violent, peaceful protests alone might not be enough. Some activists believe that nonviolence is essential but should be combined with other strategies to be truly effective. To make protests more successful, organizers need to plan carefully. That means training participants in peaceful resistance, building broad coalitions, and seeking international support. It also means understanding the political climate and knowing when peaceful tactics might need to be supplemented with other actions. So, even when protests are strong and peaceful, they can still fail because of violent repression, internal weaknesses, hostile political environments, or the limits of moral appeals. Recognizing these factors helps activists and citizens find better ways to push for change and stay resilient in the face of setbacks.